Welcome to Bookish and Beyond, where nonfiction comes to life. In each episode, we break down the world's most impactful books, from self-help to biographies. We dive into key takeaways, author insights, and modern parallels. Want more? Subscribers get exclusive access to our book summary, study guide, and timeline PDF, everything you need to go deeper. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's explore the books that change the way we think. This is Bookish and Beyond.
Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be diving into something pretty intense, the Islamic view of what happens after death, but before, like, the final judgment.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic for sure.
It's called Barzakh, right?
That's right.
And our source for all this is this YouTube video, The Life of Al-Barzakh by Bilal Asad.
Yeah, it's on the One Islam Productions channel.
So basically, we're kind of curious about what Islamic teachings say about this in-between time, you know?
Right, like, is it anything like purgatory in Catholicism? What even happens there? And why should any of this matter to us now?
Exactly.
Yeah, those are all really great questions. And to be honest with you, the video uses some pretty vivid, descriptions that might surprise some people.
Okay, so first things first. Can we even compare Barzakh to purgatory? I'm guessing it's not that simple, is it?
Not really, no. Barzakh is described more as like a barrier, a totally different state of existence. It's not like anything we experience in this life, and it's definitely not heaven or hell. The video actually uses this really powerful analogy from the Quran about, two seas meeting but never mixing.
Whoa, I can picture that. Two totally separate bodies of water, side by side, but they never actually become one.
Exactly.
It really emphasizes how much we don't understand about this concept.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reality that's just difficult for us to grasp from, our current perspective. We're talking about a place where the rules of our physical world just don't apply.
I have to admit, that's a little unnerving.
Yeah.
But the video's creator, Bilal Asad, he uses a really interesting comparison that might help us get it, though. He talks about dreams.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Dreams, really. At first glance, that seems like a bit of a stretch.
It does, but think about it. When we dream, it's like our souls are temporarily detached from our bodies,
Okay.
We experience a different reality where we don't need to breathe. Gravity doesn't always work the same way.
Yeah.
And things can just get really strange.
Okay, yeah, now that you put it that way, it makes a bizarre kind of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you woken up from a dream and been like, wait, was I flying? Or was I talking to a dog in a suit?
Exactly.
Dreams definitely have that feeling of being outside of normal reality.
Right, and that's exactly what Bilal Asad is getting at. He's using dreams as a way to show how our souls can operate independently from our bodies, existing in a realm that we don't usually perceive.
Okay, it still feels a bit abstract, but I'm starting to see the connection a little bit.
Yeah.
But even in dreams, there's usually a part of me that knows it's a dream. Is there anything like that in Barzakh?
That's a tough question, one that we can't definitively answer.
Okay.
But what we do know is that Barzakh is not just some vague, undefined state. Right. There's a structure to it, different stages.
And the video says the first stage is the grave.
Yes, the grave. In Islam, the grave isn't just a place where we're buried. It's the first stage of the Barzakh experience.
Okay.
It's where our souls begin to experience the rewards or punishments of the afterlife.
So it's not like we're just lying there in the dark, passively waiting for Judgment Day. Stuff is already happening.
Precisely. There's actually a saying of the Prophet Muhammad, a hadith, that makes this very clear. He said, "The grave is the first part of the hereafter."
Wow, okay.
What we experience there sets the tone for everything that follows.
That's pretty intense, and it makes me wonder, if Barzakh is so unlike this life, what exactly do we take with us when we die? Besides our souls, of course.
Right. That's a crucial point. And in the video, Bilal Asad actually tells this almost unbelievable story about a woman who was so attached to her car that she asked to be buried with it.
Buried with her car. That's different.
Yeah, it's definitely an extreme example, but it gets to the heart of the matter.
Okay.
Worldly possessions, no matter how much we treasure them, stay behind.
Right.
Even our relationships with our families, as strong as they are, don't cross over. The only thing that stays with us is the record of our deeds, both the good and the bad.
Oh, wow. This is where it starts getting really interesting to me. The video says there's actually a social aspect to Barzakh. like dead people can visit each other.
It's a fascinating detail, and it comes from the Hadith, which, as I mentioned before, are the collected sayings and teachings of the Prophet Muhammad.
Right.
They hold a lot of weight in Islamic tradition.
Okay.
There's one Hadith that says the Prophet Muhammad instructed Muslims to prepare the deceased's shroud carefully because other souls in the grave will see them.
So even in the afterlife, appearances matter. I'm guessing this is pointing to some type of like social structure that exists in Barzakh.
Exactly. It suggests an ongoing social element even after death. Our actions and the company we keep in this life may directly affect our experience in Barzakh.
So it's not just about individual judgment, but also about the like ripple effects of our actions on others, even in the afterlife. That's pretty profound.
It is. And there's another hadith that even mentions the impact of being buried near righteous people versus those being punished. It even says that animals can hear the suffering of those being punished in their graves.
Hold on. Even animals can sense what's happening in Barzakh. That gives me chills. It really emphasizes how everything is connected.
It's a powerful image, right? This idea that our actions have consequences that extend far beyond what we can imagine.
Yeah.
And it's all part of a bigger picture that starts to come into focus when we look at the Prophet Muhammad's own experience with Barzakh.
Oh, right. The video describes this dream that the Prophet Muhammad had that gave some pretty disturbing glimpses into the punishments of the afterlife.
It's a really powerful part of the video. The Prophet describes seeing these like vivid and unsettling scenes.
Before we jump into the Prophet Muhammad's dream, I have a question.
Yeah.
When we talk about these punishments, are they like meant to be taken literally, or are they more symbolic? I'm having a hard time imagining someone actually having their head crushed over and over.
That's a great question, and it's one that Islamic scholars have been debating for centuries. The truth is, the exact nature of these punishments in Barzakh is unclear.
Okay.
What's important is that they serve as powerful warnings about the consequences of our actions.
Okay, that makes sense. It's more about the overall message than the specific details.
Exactly.
So what were some of the scenes that the Prophet Muhammad described?
Well, one scene was a man having his head repeatedly crushed by a stone for neglecting his prayers.
Whoa, that's a pretty graphic illustration of how seriously prayer is taken in Islam.
Another scene involved someone having their face like ripped apart because they spread lies and caused conflict between people.
Ouch. That definitely drives home the point about honesty and the importance of fostering peace instead of discord.
The Prophet Muhammad also saw a person being forced to swallow hot stones.
Oh, wow.
As a punishment for dealing in riba.
Riba.
Which is basically profiting off of someone else's misfortune or hardship. It's kind of like predatory lending.
Right, right. It definitely connects to the idea of ethical financial dealings in Islam.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He also witnessed adulterers being burned in a fiery oven, a pretty vivid image meant to represent the immense pain and suffering associated with breaking those sacred vows.
It's clear that these visions were meant to be unsettling and really emphasize the severity of certain actions.
Right. And there was another group of people who were particularly interesting. One side of their bodies was incredibly beautiful, and the other was hideously deformed. They would bathe in this river, and for a moment, they'd be completely restored to beauty.
Okay.
But then almost immediately, they'd revert back to their dual nature.
That one really makes you think.
Yeah.
It's like even if you strive to do good, there could still be consequences for the bad things you've done.
Exactly.
It highlights that the internal struggle we all face between good and evil.
And I'm glad you brought up the idea of striving for good, because the Prophet's dream wasn't all darkness and punishment.
Oh, good. I was starting to feel pretty overwhelmed by all the heavy stuff. What were some of the more positive things you saw?
Well, he described seeing Prophet Ibrahim, a central figure in Islam, surrounded by children who had died before reaching the age of accountability.
That's a really comforting image, especially for parents who've experienced the loss of a young child.
He also encountered Malik,
Malik,
the angel of hell.
Wait, the angel of hell is a positive part of the dream?
Well, maybe not positive in the, traditional sense.
Sure.
Malik was described as incredibly imposing and serious, never smiling. But his presence served as this reminder of God's, absolute authority and justice.
Okay, I can see how that could be interpreted as reassuring in a way.
Right.
It reinforces the idea of, divine order, even within the context of punishment.
Exactly.
So it's important to remember that Barzakh is not solely about punishment.
That's right.
It's also about reward.
Bilal Assad really stresses the concept of light in the grave, which represents a person's spiritual state in Barzakh.
Yeah, I remember that from the video. The
Yeah.
more light you have, the better your experience will be in Barzakh. But I'm curious, like, how exactly is this light measured? Is it like a literal light? And what determines how much light someone has?
It's a metaphorical light, a representation of the soul's state of peace and closeness to God.
Okay.
And of course, the person's actions in this life play a huge role in how much light they have.
Right.
But there are also things that others can do to benefit the deceased.
Oh, this is good. Always looking for ways to help out friends and family, even after they've passed. So what can we do?
Well, the video highlights 3 things that continue to benefit a person even after they're gone.
Okay.
The first is having righteous children who pray for them.
So being a good parent has rewards that continue even after death.
Exactly.
Makes you think. What's the second one?
Leaving behind beneficial knowledge that others can continue to learn from.
So our teaching and the wisdom we share can have a ripple effect that lasts far beyond our lifetimes. That's pretty powerful.
It really is. What's the third?
Ongoing charity. Acts of kindness and generosity can continue to benefit others even after we're gone. I love this idea. It means we can have a positive impact on the world even after we're, like, physically gone.
Absolutely.
But what about the length of Barzakh? How long does this whole thing last?
Well, that's something only God knows for sure.
Okay.
But what we do know is that it continues until the Day of Judgment, which the video describes in pretty vivid detail.
Right. The Day of Judgment is a huge concept in Islam. Can you, like, paint a picture of what that's supposed to look like, according to the video?
Okay, so picture this. It's the end of time, and the angel Israfil blows this massive trumpet, signaling the end of the world as we know it.
Right.
Everything stops.
Yeah.
Every living thing, from the smallest insect to the largest whale, experiences death.
Whoa, that's intense. Talk about a universal reset button. So
Go.
everyone dies, even those who are already in Barzakh.
Yes. Even those in Barzakh experience a second death.
Wow.
It's a total annihilation of everything. A return to nothingness before the grand recreation.
So it's not just the end, it's like the end before the beginning.
Exactly. And what comes after that moment of absolute stillness is even more awe-inspiring. It's the resurrection. Bilal Assad describes it as this, like, massive awakening, a moment when every soul that has ever existed is brought back to life and stands before God to be judged for their actions.
Okay, so it's like a universal roll call.
Yes,
Everyone present and accounted for.
precisely. And in that moment, the full weight of our actions in this life becomes undeniably clear.
Wow.
Every thought, every word, every deed is laid bare before God, and judgment is passed.
I can only imagine the scale of that event. Billions upon billions of souls, all standing there together.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to wrap your head around.
It's meant to be overwhelming. The Day of Judgment is described so dramatically to emphasize the absolute authority and justice of God.
So judgment is passed. What happens to everyone then?
At that point, the journey splits into 2 distinct paths: paradise and hellfire.
Eternal reward or eternal punishment? Those are some pretty high stakes. Can you
Yeah.
tell us more about what each of these destinations is like in Islamic teaching?
Sure. Paradise is described as this realm of unimaginable beauty and bliss,
Okay.
a garden of eternal delight where every desire is fulfilled. It's a place where rivers flow with milk and honey, delicious fruits hang from every branch, and you're surrounded by loved ones and angels, experiencing constant joy and contentment.
It sounds idyllic.
It does.
What about hellfire? I'm guessing it's not quite as pleasant.
No, definitely not. Hellfire is depicted as a place of unimaginable suffering and torment, a fiery pit where the wicked are punished for their transgressions. The descriptions in the Islamic scriptures are quite graphic,
Right.
talking about burning flames, scorching winds, and this insatiable, unbearable thirst.
Yikes.
Yeah.
It definitely seems designed to evoke a sense of dread and fear.
Is
The contrast between paradise and hellfire is about as stark as it gets.
exactly. The point of these vivid descriptions is to, like, steer people away from doing wrong
Right.
and encourage them to strive for righteousness. The choice is pretty clear. Live a life that leads to paradise or risk facing the consequences in hellfire.
It all boils down to personal responsibility and the choices we make in this life.
That's right. Ultimately, our actions determine our final destination, but it's crucial to remember that Islam also emphasizes God's mercy and forgiveness.
Oh, okay.
Even people who've committed serious sins can repent and seek forgiveness before death, and God, in his infinite mercy, may grant them entry into paradise.
That's reassuring. It means that even if we've messed up, there's always hope for redemption
Yeah.
if we genuinely change our ways.
The door to repentance is always open.
So we've gone from death to Barzakh, through the day of judgment, and finally to the ultimate destination of either paradise or hellfire. It's quite a journey.
It really is. And it brings up some profound questions about our existence, our purpose, and the choices we make in this life.
One thing that really stood out to me from the video was the idea of preparing for death.
Yeah.
Not in a morbid way, but in a way that, inspires us to make the most of our lives.
That's a key takeaway for sure.
Yeah.
The whole concept of the afterlife in Islam isn't meant to, scare us or make us anxious.
Right.
But to guide us towards living a righteous and fulfilling life.
It's easy to get caught up in the intense descriptions of punishment and reward.
Yeah.
But in the end, the message is about aligning our lives with our values and striving to live in a way that honors God's will.
And it's about recognizing that our actions have consequences that extend far beyond our own lifetimes. We have a responsibility to ourselves, our loved ones, and the world around us to make choices that lead to goodness.
That's a beautiful way to put it. This deep dive has given me a lot to think about.
Me too.
It's always fascinating to explore these big questions about life, death, and what lies beyond. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Barzakh.
Yeah, we have.
From death to judgment, paradise, and hellfire.
It's a lot to process.
It really is. What are some of the things that, really stuck with you from the video and from our discussion?
Well, one thing I found particularly thought-provoking was how even, seemingly small actions can have a big impact in the afterlife.
Oh, interesting.
The example that comes to mind is the one Bilal Assad gave about a man being punished for not urinating in private.
Yeah, that one seemed a little out of left field, I have to say.
It did. But it really highlights the idea that in Islam, all aspects of life are considered sacred.
Right.
Even everyday actions should be approached with mindfulness and respect.
So it's not just about avoiding major sins.
Right.
But about cultivating a sense of awareness and intention in every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, exactly.
It really makes you stop and think about all the little choices you make throughout the day.
Yeah, it does.
Another detail that stood out to me was the social aspect of Barzakh.
Oh, yeah.
The idea that souls can interact with each other.
Right.
That they are aware of their loved ones back in this world.
Yeah.
It kind of adds a whole new layer to the concept of the afterlife.
It does. It makes Barzakh feel less abstract and more relatable in a way.
It also underscores the importance of community and connection.
Yeah.
Both in this life and the next.
That's right.
Our relationships really do have a profound impact on our spiritual journeys.
I agree.
Thinking about how our deeds are the only things that truly accompany us after death. And how those deeds are, being constantly evaluated in Barzakh.
Right.
It really makes you reflect on how you're living your life right now.
It does, for sure.
Yeah. If you had to pick, one key lesson from this entire deep dive,
okay,
what would it be?
For me, it's the reminder that this life is preparation for the next. Our choices today have consequences that ripple far beyond our earthly existence.
I love that. And it connects to something I've been thinking about.
Oh, okay.
The video mentioned ongoing charity, beneficial knowledge, and righteous children as ways to benefit the deceased.
Right. Powerful legacies to leave behind.
Yeah, but what if we took it a step further? Instead of just focusing on how to benefit the deceased,
okay,
what if we tried to emulate them?
Oh, interesting.
If we looked at the lives of those who came before us, especially those we admire, and ask ourselves, what can we learn from their examples? How can we live in a way that would make them proud?
That's a beautiful way to look at it.
Yeah.
Honoring their memory by striving to live up to their values.
Exactly. It's about carrying their legacy forward.
Yes.
Not just in our thoughts and prayers, but in the way we live our lives each and every day.
A truly inspiring thought to end on.
I agree. I hope this deep dive has given our listeners some valuable insights and food for thought. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.